I'm Paige, 27, an ambitious graphic designer who finally landed my dream job at a prestigious advertising agency in New York. Just as I was celebrating this achievement, I received an urgent call from my mother demanding I return home to care for my 19-year-old sister Madison, who dropped out of college. I felt my hard-earned freedom slipping away as family obligations threatened to derail my career. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Drop a like and subscribe to join me on this journey of finally putting myself first. Growing up in Oak Ridge, a small Midwestern town where creativity was seen as more of a hobby than a career path, I always felt like my talents were never fully appreciated. My parents had traditional values and expectations. My father, a kind-hearted high school history teacher, quietly supported my artistic aspirations, while my mother, a dental receptionist with unfulfilled ambitions, focused most of her attention on my younger sister Madison. From the moment Madison was born, when I was 8, she became the golden child of the family. She had these big blue eyes and blonde curls that charmed everyone, while I was the awkward, introverted kid with perpetually paint-stained fingers. Madison could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. If she broke something, it was an accident. If I broke something, I was being careless. When Madison wanted dance lessons, my parents found the money. When I wanted art classes, I was told to check out books from the library. I don't want to sound bitter. I loved my sister, but the difference in how we were treated was impossible to ignore. My father would sometimes slip me extra allowance money for art supplies and whisper that my paintings were museum-worthy. Those moments kept me going through the harder times. Everything changed when my father died of a sudden heart attack when I was 16. One day, he was helping me research art schools, and the next, he was gone. Our family dynamic shifted dramatically after that. My mother, overcome with grief and the stress of being a single parent, leaned on me heavily while simultaneously clinging to Madison as if she was the only light left in her world. I stepped up in ways most teenagers shouldn't have to. I cooked meals, helped with bills, and essentially became a third parent to Madison while still trying to maintain my grades. Meanwhile, Madison was shielded from responsibility because my mother didn't want her to lose her childhood. During my senior year, when I should have been applying to art schools, I was working 20 hours a week at a local diner to help with household expenses. The dream of attending a prestigious art program seemed to be slipping away. My high school art teacher, Mrs. Jameson, was the one who pushed me to apply anyway. She helped me put together a portfolio and even paid the application fee for the state university's art program from her own pocket. When I got accepted with a partial scholarship, I cried for hours. College was a constant struggle of balancing classes, multiple jobs, and frequent calls from home. I worked at the campus coffee shop in the mornings, waited tables on weekends, and took freelance design gigs whenever possible. Sleep became a luxury. Despite this, I maintained a 3.8 GPA and built a portfolio that started getting attention from small design firms. Meanwhile, Madison breezed through high school with my mother attending every volleyball game and school event, something she rarely had time for during my high school years. When Madison graduated, my mother took out a loan to send her to an expensive private university, something that was never even considered for me. Throughout those years, my mother perfected the art of emotional manipulation. Anytime I couldn't make it home for a weekend, or missed a family call because of work, I'd receive texts about how I was abandoning the family or forgetting where I came from. The guilt trips were relentless, but I persevered because I had a vision for my life that extended beyond the boundaries of our small town. After graduation, I moved to New York with nothing but 2 suitcases and a dream. The city was overwhelming at first, nothing like the quiet streets of Oak Ridge. I shared a tiny apartment in Brooklyn with 3 other struggling creatives, worked at a coffee shop during the day, and applied to every design position I could find at night. The rejection letters piled up. For every 50 applications, I might get 1 interview, and those interviews rarely led to offers. But each portfolio review taught me something new, and I continued refining my work. After a year of scraping by, I landed a junior designer position at a small marketing agency. The pay was barely enough to live on, but it was a foot in the door. While I was fighting to establish my career, Madison was following her typical pattern. She enrolled in business school, decided it wasn't for her. After one semester, switched to psychology, then dropped that program after finding it too intense. My mother defended each of these decisions, saying Madison was finding herself. What bothered me wasn't the changing interest that's normal at that age, but rather the complete lack of consequences. Each program change and dropout was met with understanding and financial support from my mother. After 3 years of working my way up through increasingly better positions, I finally got the call that changed everything. Archer & Stone, one of the most prestigious advertising agencies in New York, wanted me as a senior designer on their creative team. The salary was more than double what I was making. The benefits were exceptional, and the creative opportunities were everything I had dreamed of. I moved into my own apartment, a tiny but beautiful studio in Manhattan. It wasn't much, but it was mine, every square foot paid for with my hard work and determination. My tiny balcony overlooking the busy street below became my favorite place to sketch and dream up new designs. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Then came the call that threatened to undo everything I had built. It was a Friday evening, and the Archer & Stone creative team was celebrating the successful pitch for a major cosmetics brand. We had worked around the clock for weeks, and our efforts had paid off. The client loved our campaign concept, and our boss, Jared, had taken us all out for drinks at an upscale bar near the office. To Paige, Jared raised his glass, whose brilliant redesign of the packaging sealed the deal. The client specifically mentioned your work. Everyone clinked glasses, and I felt that rare glow of professional validation wash over me. 3 months into my dream job, and I was already making a name for myself. My phone buzzed in my purse, but I ignored it. Whatever it was could wait. This moment was too precious. After a second round of drinks, my phone buzzed repeatedly, indicating multiple missed calls. Excusing myself, I stepped outside to check. 5 missed calls from my mother. My stomach instantly knotted. Multiple calls usually meant bad news. I called her back immediately, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Was Madison in an accident? Was Mom sick? Finally! My mother answered, her voice thick with tears. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Mom, what's wrong? Is everyone okay? No, nothing's okay. It's Madison. She's dropped out again. She came home yesterday with all her things. She says college isn't for her. My racing heart slowed slightly. Not an emergency, just another Madison situation. That's disappointing, but she'll figure something else out, I said, trying to sound supportive while hiding my frustration. You don't understand, my mother continued, her voice breaking. She's not just disappointed. The doctor says she's clinically depressed. She barely eats, barely leaves her room. I don't know what to do. I can't handle this alone. The knot in my stomach tightened. I knew what was coming next. Paige, I need you to come home, just for a little while. Madison needs both of us right now. I leaned against the brick wall of the building, suddenly feeling like I couldn't breathe properly. Mom, I can't just leave. I just started this job. We just landed a major client. They're counting on me. It's just a job, Paige, my mother said, her tone shifting from pleading to slightly accusatory. This is family. Madison needs her big sister. I need my daughter. Family comes first, you know that. Those familiar guilt triggers washed over me like a wave. Family comes first. As if my life, my dreams, my hard work meant nothing compared to family obligations, especially when those obligations centered around Madison. Let me think about what I can do, I managed to say. I'll call you tomorrow. I ended the call and immediately felt my chest constricting. I hurried to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and tried to control my breathing as panic overwhelmed me. Everything I had worked for was hanging in the balance because Madison had once again given up when things got difficult. After splashing cold water on my face, I returned to the table, but the celebration had lost its luster for me. Amanda, a fellow designer who had become something of a mentor to me, noticed my change in demeanor. "Everything okay?" she asked quietly while the others were engaged in conversation. "Family stuff," I murmured. "My sister dropped out of college again, and my mom wants me to come home and help." Amanda's expression shifted to one of understanding. "I've been there. My brother had addiction issues, and my parents expected me to put my life on hold multiple times to help. It took me years to realize that sacrificing my dreams wasn't actually helping him." Her words hit home, but the guilt remained. After the gathering broke up, I called my mother again, hoping to reason with her. "Mom, I can't just leave my job. This is the opportunity I've worked years for. Can we look into getting Madison a therapist instead? I can help financially." "A stranger can't replace family, Paige," my mother said firmly. "Madison specifically asked for you. She looks up to you. She just needs her sister for a little while. Surely your job would understand a family leave for a few weeks." A few weeks. That seemed manageable. Maybe I could work remotely part of the time. Maybe this could work. The next day at work, Jared noticed my distraction during our morning meeting. "Paige, you seem off today. Everything all right?" "Family emergency," I explained vaguely. "My sister is having some mental health issues, and my mom is struggling to handle it alone." Jared's expression softened. "Family comes first. Let me know what you need." That night, I barely slept. I paced my tiny apartment, making lists of pros and cons, calculating how long I could afford to be away, and researching the company's family leave policy. By morning, I had convinced myself that a 2-week trip home was the right thing to do. I could help stabilize the situation, set Madison up with professional help, and return to my life in New York. Thomas, my boyfriend of 6 months, came over to see me before I made any decisions. He worked as an architect at a firm downtown, and we had met when his company hired mine for a rebranding project. "Babe, think about this," he said as we sat on my small couch. "This is the 3rd time in the 2 years I've known you that you've dropped everything for your family. Remember last Christmas when you spent your bonus on Madison's car repair instead of visiting me in Chicago?" "That was different," I defended, though part of me knew he had a point. "Was it, Paige? You're the most talented designer I know, and you've worked too hard to risk this job. Can your mom really not handle this without you physically being there?" His questions made sense, but the years of conditioning to put family first, particularly Madison's needs, ran deep. That evening, I booked a flight home, telling myself it was just for 2 weeks. Just long enough to get things sorted. As I packed my suitcase, a sense of dread washed over me. Somehow, I knew that going home this time would be different. I just didn't realize yet how much it would change everything. The taxi dropped me off in front of the modest 2-story house I had grown up in. From the outside, it looked the same as always, though perhaps the paint was peeling a bit more around the windows, and the garden my father had lovingly maintained was now overrun with weeds. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and stood for a moment on the sidewalk, steeling myself before walking up the familiar cracked concrete path to the front door. Before I could knock, the door swung open, and my mother engulfed me in a tight hug that smelled of the same drugstore perfume she'd worn my entire life. "Thank God you're here," she whispered, clutching me as if I might disappear. "I just didn't know what else to do." As she pulled back, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes and the new wrinkles that hadn't been there at Christmas. She looked older, more fragile somehow. The guilt I'd been fighting intensified. "Where's Madison?" I asked, stepping into the house and noticing the general state of disarray. Dishes were piled in the sink, mail was scattered across the coffee table, and there was a fine layer of dust on most surfaces. "In her room playing those video games as usual, but at least she's up today. That's progress." I frowned. I thought she was severely depressed, too depressed to leave her room. My mother waved dismissively. "It comes and goes. Some days are better than others. Leaving my suitcase by the stairs, I made my way to Madison's room, which had once been the family den. After my father died, my mother had converted it to a bedroom for Madison so she could have more space. I knocked lightly before pushing the door open. There sat my sister headset, on fingers flying over a game controller, laughing and talking to someone online. She looked up briefly. "Oh, hey, you're here," she said casually before returning her attention to the game. "Mom said you were coming." I stood there momentarily stunned. This was the severely depressed person who couldn't function without my presence. She looked perfectly fine, lounging in pajama pants and a tank top surrounded by snack wrappers and empty energy drink cans. "Madison, can we talk for a minute?" I asked, raising my voice slightly to be heard over her game. "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of something." I felt a surge of irritation, but pushed it down. "Sure, I'll unpack first. We can talk later." I headed upstairs to my old bedroom only to find it completely transformed. The walls once covered with my artwork and photography were now bare except for Madison's volleyball trophies and posters. My desk, where I'd spent countless hours drawing and studying, was gone, replaced by a gaming setup with an expensive-looking chair and multiple monitors. "Mom," I called out confused, "where am I supposed to sleep?" My mother appeared at the bottom of the stairs. "Oh, I meant to tell you. We converted your room for Madison's gaming about 6 months ago. Her equipment needed more space than the den. I've made up the couch for you. It pulls out into a bed." I tried to hide my hurt and disappointment. "What happened to all my things? My art supplies? My books?" "They're boxed up in the basement, dear. We couldn't just leave your room untouched forever when Madison needed the space." Forever. I'd only been gone 3 years, and I came home for holidays. This wasn't about practical space needs. This was yet another sign that Madison's desires trumped everything else, including my history in this house. As I headed back downstairs, I noticed a familiar-looking envelope on the desk in the hallway. Picking it up, I was surprised to see it was addressed to my boss, Jared Kelly, at Archer & Stone. It was unsealed, so I slipped out the letter inside. "Dear Mr. Kelly," it read in my mother's handwriting. "I am writing to inform you that my daughter Paige will need to take an indefinite family leave effective immediately due to serious family circumstances." My blood ran cold. My mother had written to my boss without my knowledge or consent, essentially telling him I was taking an indefinite leave rather than the 2 weeks we had discussed. The letter was dated 3 weeks ago, long before her emotional phone call to me. I found my mother in the kitchen, attempting to clean up the dishes. "Mom, what is this?" I held up the letter, my hand shaking slightly. "You wrote to my boss 3 weeks ago about me taking indefinite leave." She had the decency to look embarrassed. "I was going to tell you about that. I thought it would help if the groundwork was already laid. I know how important your job is to you, and I wanted to make sure they held your position." "But indefinite leave. We agreed on 2 weeks, and you dated this before you even called me about Madison dropping out." "Well, I knew it was coming," she admitted. "The school called me about her failing grades a month ago. I could tell she wasn't going to last the semester." The pieces started coming together. So this wasn't a sudden emergency. You knew Madison was dropping out again, and you planned for me to come take care of her all along. "Not take care of her," my mother corrected. "Just help her get back on her feet. You've always been so good at motivating her." Before I could respond, I heard Madison's door open and her footsteps heading to the kitchen. She walked in still in her pajamas despite it being mid-afternoon and headed straight for the refrigerator. "There's no food," she complained, looking at our mother accusingly. "And we're out of my special almond milk." "I'll go shopping tomorrow, sweetie," our mother said quickly. "Paige just got here, and I wanted to spend time with her first." Madison rolled her eyes and grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl. "Whatever. Are you making dinner soon? Tara invited me to a movie night at 8. "You're going out?" I asked, unable to keep the incredulity from my voice. I thought you were dealing with depression. Madison shrugged. I have good days and bad days. Today's a good day. As she sauntered back to her room, apple in hand, I turned to my mother with raised eyebrows. She seems fine to me. You don't see her on the bad days, my mother defended weakly. Besides, the doctor said social interaction is important for her recovery. I bit my tongue to keep from pointing out that if Madison was well enough for movie nights with friends, she probably didn't need her sister to put her career on hold to care for her. That evening, while my mother was preparing dinner, I explored the house further, looking for my belongings. In the basement, I found stacks of boxes labeled Paige's Things. They were shoved into a corner, covered in dust, some of them water-damaged from a leaky pipe overhead. Opening one, I found my high school sketchbooks, the pages wavy and stuck together from moisture. In another box, I found a framed drawing my father had paid to have professionally matted and framed for my 16th birthday. The glass was cracked, and the mat was water-stained. My mother had promised to hang it in the living room after he died, saying it would be like keeping a part of him with us since he had been so proud of my talent. Instead, it had been discarded in a damp basement while Madison's volleyball trophies took pride of place on the mantel. As I carefully extracted the drawing from its damaged frame, I noticed a travel brochure tucked into another box. Picking it up, I saw it was for a Florida resort with a handwritten note. Reservation confirmed for June 15th, July 17th, Susan Lawson. My mother had booked a month-long Florida vacation starting just a few days after my arrival home, a vacation that had been planned well in advance judging by the confirmation date on the brochure, which was over a month old. With growing suspicion, I checked the family calendar hanging in the laundry room. There, marked in my mother's neat handwriting on today's date, were the words, Paige arrives, and 2 days from now, orientation for Tampa resort job. My mother had a job lined up in Florida. This wasn't just a vacation, she was relocating temporarily at least, and she had orchestrated my arrival to coincide perfectly with her departure. I was being set up to replace her as Madison's caretaker, not just for 2 weeks, but potentially for months. And neither of them had been honest with me about it. That night, lying on the uncomfortable pull-out couch that sagged in the middle, I called my boss directly. Jared, I'm so sorry about the confusion. My mother shouldn't have sent that letter. I only planned to be away for 2 weeks at most, and I can work remotely. There was an uncomfortable pause. Paige, I hate to tell you this, but we've already brought in a freelancer to cover your projects. With the Luxe Cosmetics campaign in full swing, we couldn't leave the position unfilled. My heart sank. So, what does that mean for my job? It's still yours, Jared assured me. But we need you back within the week if you want to maintain your role on the Luxe team. Otherwise, we'll have to reassign you when you return. The Luxe campaign was the biggest opportunity of my career. Being removed from it would be a significant setback. Yet here I was, trapped in a situation engineered by my mother, with Madison seemingly capable of caring for herself despite the supposed crisis. As I ended the call, I realized with growing clarity that my family saw me not as a person with my own dreams and ambitions, but as a resource to be called upon whenever Madison needed support or my mother wanted a break from her responsibilities. The question was, what was I going to do about it? A week passed, and the situation deteriorated rapidly. As I had suspected, my mother announced over breakfast 3 days after my arrival that she had a wonderful opportunity to work at a resort in Florida for a month. It's just perfect timing that you're here to stay with Madison, she said, avoiding my eyes as she packed her suitcase. I've been needing a change of scenery, and this fell into my lap. This didn't just fall into your lap, I confronted her, holding up the reservation confirmation I'd found. You planned this weeks ago. You manipulated me into coming home so you could leave. She had the grace to look guilty. Not manipulated, honey. I just knew you'd want to help if you understood how much we needed you. Madison really is struggling, even if she doesn't show it when you're around. Before I could argue further, she hugged me quickly, grabbed her suitcase, and hurried out to the waiting taxi. "There's money for groceries in the drawer I'll call when I get settled." And just like that, I was alone with Madison, who had slept through our mother's departure and didn't emerge from her room until noon. "Where's Mom?" she asked, looking around the kitchen as if our mother might be hiding behind the refrigerator. "On her way to Florida for her resort job, the one that was planned weeks ago. Did you know about this?" Madison shrugged, reaching for a box of cereal. "She mentioned something about a job opportunity. Didn't know it was happening so soon." I didn't believe her for a second, but arguing wouldn't change the situation. I was stuck here at least temporarily while my career hung in the balance back in New York. I tried to establish some ground rules. "Look, if I'm staying here to help you, we need to work together. I have to keep up with some work remotely, and you need to start thinking about your next steps." Madison nodded absently, already scrolling through her phone. "Sure, whatever. Can you make something for dinner later? I'm meeting friends at the mall." And so began my new role as Madison's caretaker cook and housekeeper. I tried to work remotely, setting up a makeshift office at the kitchen table since my old bedroom was now Madison's gaming headquarters. But every time I got into a creative flow, Madison would interrupt with a request or complaint. "Paige, can you drive me to Tara's house?" "Paige, we're out of my special shampoo." "Paige, the Wi-Fi is too slow when I'm gaming. Can you call the company?" I felt like I was being nibbled to death by ducks. Each request was small, but together, they consumed my day and destroyed my productivity. 5 days into my mother's absence, I received a call from Amanda at work. "Paige, I wanted to check in. Also, the team is starting concept work on the holiday campaign for Lux. Jared asked me to see if you'd be back in time to lead it." The holiday campaign, a major opportunity that could cement my position at the agency and potentially lead to a promotion. "When do you need me back?" I asked, heart racing. "Ideally by next Monday. That gives you 4 days? I'll be there." I promised, though I had no idea how I would manage it. "Save me a spot at the planning meeting." That evening, I attempted to talk to Madison about my need to return to New York soon. She was sprawled on the couch watching a reality show and texting simultaneously. "Madison, we need to talk about next steps. I have to get back to work on Monday." She looked up genuinely surprised. "You're leaving, but Mom won't be back for weeks. Who's going to stay with me?" "You're 19, Madison. You can stay by yourself, or find a roommate, or get a job in your own place." She laughed as if I'd said something absurd. "I can't afford my own place, and I'm not ready for a job yet. I'm still figuring out my path." "Well, I can't put my entire career on hold while you figure it out," I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "I've worked too hard to get where I am." Madison's expression hardened. "It's always about you, isn't it? Your career, your dreams. What about supporting your family? Mom said you'd help me get back on my feet." "And how exactly are you trying to get back on your feet? Have you looked for jobs, considered community college, anything?" "I told you I'm not ready yet," she snapped, standing up abruptly. "Some of us don't have it all figured out like Perfect Paige." Before I could respond, she stormed off to her room, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. The next day, things escalated further. Madison invited friends over without asking, and I came home from grocery shopping to find 6 people in the living room making a mess and being loud. I recognized a few of them from her high school days, none of whom had jobs or attended college from what I could gather. "Madison, a little heads up would have been nice," I said quietly, pulling her aside. "It's my house too," she retorted, "and my friends wanted to hang out." I let it go, retreating to the kitchen to try to get some work done on my laptop. Hours later, after her friends had finally left, I discovered someone had spilled something on my portfolio binder that I'd left on the coffee table. The pages were stuck together, and several printouts of my best work were ruined. "Madison," I called out, anger rising. "Did you see what happened to my portfolio?" She wandered into the living room, still holding a bag of chips. Oh yeah, Jordan knocked something over. He tried to clean it up. This is my professional work. These are samples I need for my job. Geez, calm down. Can't you just print more? The casual dismissal of something so important to me was the last straw. This isn't working, Madison. You need to start taking some responsibility. I can't be your babysitter forever. I never asked you to be my babysitter, she shot back. Mom's the one who wanted you here. I was doing fine without you. Really? Because according to Mom, you were too depressed to function without me here. Madison rolled her eyes. Mom exaggerates. I was just taking a mental health break. A mental health break, I repeated slowly. While Mom works at a resort and I put my career at risk. That sounds fair. Don't make this my fault, Madison snapped. It's not my job to make your life convenient. We're family. Families help each other. Help goes both ways, Madison. What exactly are you doing to help this family? She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she retreated to her room again, this time taking my laptop with her. I need to borrow this. Mine's acting weird. Before I could protest, she had locked herself in her room. I pounded on the door, demanding my computer back, but she turned her music up to drown me out. An hour later, she emerged, handing the laptop back without a word. When I opened it, I discovered she had accidentally spilled soda on the keyboard. Several keys were sticky and unresponsive, and there was a small crack in the corner of the screen. Madison, what did you do? I held up the damaged laptop, which contained all my current work files. It was an accident, she shrugged. It still works mostly. I took a deep breath, trying to control my temper. I need this for work, for my job. The job that pays actual money, which is apparently supporting this household now. Whatever. Mom pays the bills here, not you. With what money? Madison, Mom's working at a resort for probably minimum wage. Before that, she was a receptionist. Where do you think the extra money comes from when you need something? Who do you think paid for your car repair last Christmas? Madison looked genuinely confused. That was Mom. No, that was me. I sent Mom my Christmas bonus to fix your car instead of visiting Thomas's family like I had planned. She was silent for a moment, processing this information. Well, no one asked you to do that. Don't blame me for your choices. At that moment, my phone rang. It was my mother checking in from Florida. How are things going, sweetie? She asked cheerfully. Is Madison doing better with you there? Mom, this isn't working, I said flatly. Madison doesn't need a caretaker. She needs to grow up and take some responsibility. And I need to get back to my job before I lose it completely. There was a long pause before my mother responded, her voice suddenly cold. I see. So you're just going to abandon your sister when she needs you? Leave me to handle everything alone like always. That's not fair. I've always helped when I could, but I can't sacrifice my entire future. I sacrificed plenty for you girls after your father died, she said, her voice thick with accusation. I put my life on hold. I gave up my dreams of going back to school. And now you can't spare a few months for your family. A few months? I echoed in disbelief. You told me this was temporary, a couple of weeks at most. Well, things change, she said dismissively. Madison needs more time, and I've committed to this job through the summer. We're family, Paige. We're supposed to be there for each other. As the conversation continued, the truth became increasingly clear. My mother had no intention of returning anytime soon, and the few weeks she had initially mentioned had magically extended to the entire summer. She expected me to put my life and career on indefinite hold, to care for my adult sister, who showed no signs of actually needing care or taking steps toward independence. By the time I hung up, I felt numb with the realization that my family had planned my entire future without my consent or input. They had decided my role was to be Madison's permanent support system, regardless of the cost to my own dreams and ambitions. That night, as I lay awake on the uncomfortable couch, I came to a painful but necessary conclusion. I couldn't keep setting myself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they took my sacrifice for granted. Something had to change, and since I couldn't change them, I would have to change how I responded to them. The next morning, I sat alone in our overgrown backyard, watching the sunrise from the old wooden swing my father had built. The cool morning air cleared my head as I contemplated my situation with fresh eyes. I remembered my father's words during one of our last conversations before his heart attack. We had been discussing my dream of studying art in New York, and I had expressed worry about leaving my mother and sister. "Paige," he had said, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "You have to live your own life, not someone else's. Helping family is important, but not at the cost of your own happiness. Your mother and Madison will be fine. You deserve your own path." Had he somehow foreseen this moment? Had he known I would struggle with the tension between family obligation and personal fulfillment? I spent the entire night making lists in a notebook trying to gain clarity. In one column, I wrote everything I had sacrificed for my family over the years. My art school dream, countless weekends, holidays, financial security, relationships. In another column, I listed what I had received in return: a damaged portfolio, a job in jeopardy, and the expectation of further sacrifice. The imbalance was stark and painful to acknowledge. As dawn broke, I researched setting boundaries with family on my phone, reading articles and forum posts from others who had faced similar situations. I wasn't alone in this struggle. Many others had found themselves the designated responsible one in a family dynamic that took their support for granted. One particular passage resonated deeply. "Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to stop enabling behavior that keeps them from growing. Real love means wanting the best for others, even when that requires difficult boundaries." By mid-morning, I had made my decision. I called Thomas, who answered immediately despite being at work. "Paige, how are you holding up? Any progress with the family situation?" "I've made a decision," I said, surprised by the steady calm in my voice. "I'm coming back to New York. Not in 2 weeks. Now." "Thank God," he breathed. "I've been worried sick about you losing your position. What changed your mind?" I realized I can't solve problems for people who don't want solutions. My sister doesn't need a caretaker, she needs consequences, and I can't provide those while sacrificing my own future. Thomas's voice was warm with approval. "That's the Paige I know. Strong and clear-headed. What's your plan?" "I'm still working that out, but I need your help with something. Can you check on my apartment? Make sure everything's okay there." "Already did yesterday. Your plants are watered. Mail is collected. The place is waiting for you." His words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. While my family was planning my life without consulting me, Thomas was quietly supporting my independence. Next, I called Amanda at work. "Paige, please tell me you're coming back. Jared's been asking about the holiday campaign concepts." "I am," I confirmed. "But I need a favor. Can you bring my backup hard drive and tablet from my desk drawer to my apartment? I'll need them to finish some work before Monday's meeting." "Of course," she agreed instantly. "When are you coming back?" "Tomorrow," I said firmly. "I'll be at the Monday meeting." "What about your family situation?" "I'm handling it, just differently than they expected." After ending the call, I spent the afternoon carefully planning. I checked my finances, confirming I had enough savings to help my family financially without sacrificing my career. I called my landlord to ensure my lease was secure and made arrangements with a monthly grocery delivery service to send essentials to my mother's house. I would support my family, but on my terms, in ways that wouldn't destroy what I had built. The hardest part was composing the letter. I went through 7 drafts, trying to find the right balance between compassion and firmness. I didn't want to hurt them, but I needed them to understand that things had to change. While Madison was out with friends that evening, I called Jared directly. "I'll be back in the office on Monday," I told him. "The family situation is being handled differently than expected." "That's good to hear," he said, relief evident in his voice. "The Lux team has been asking for you specifically. They liked your aesthetic direction." "I won't let them down," I promised. After dinner, I checked flights on my phone, finding a direct flight to New York the next afternoon. Without hesitation, I booked it using my emergency credit card. It felt both terrifying and liberating to take this step. That night, I packed essentials into my suitcase when Madison was busy gaming with her online friends. I retrieved a few precious mementos from the basement boxes, including my father's watch and the damaged drawing he had framed. These pieces of my history deserved better than to rot in a damp basement. I set up automatic monthly transfers from my checking account to my mother's, enough to help with expenses, but not enough to enable continued irresponsibility. I made a list of local therapists and job resources for Madison, printing it out to leave with my letter. The mixture of emotions was overwhelming: guilt at the thought of leaving, fear of their reaction, but underneath it all, a growing sense of liberation. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I was prioritizing my own well-being, not out of selfishness, but out of the recognition that my worth wasn't tied solely to what I could do for others. As I finalized my plans, I felt my father's presence stronger than I had in years. I could almost hear him say, "It's time to live your own life, Paige." And for once, I was ready to listen. My last day in the family home felt surreal. I went through the motions, making breakfast, tidying up, all while knowing I would be gone by afternoon. Madison slept late as usual, and when she finally emerged around 11, I had already called a taxi to pick me up at 1. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge for lunch," I told her casually. "I'm going to the library to use their computer since mine is damaged." She barely looked up from her phone. "Whatever. Can you grab some ice cream on your way back?" "Sure," I lied, feeling a pang of guilt that I quickly suppressed. This wasn't about punishing Madison or my mother. It was about reclaiming my life and giving them the opportunity to reclaim theirs. While Madison was in the shower, I placed my carefully written letter on the kitchen table. I had sealed it in an envelope with both my mother's and Madison's names on it. I stood there for a moment, hand resting on the envelope, heart racing. Was I really going to do this? Leave without a face-to-face goodbye? Part of me felt like a coward, but another part knew that a direct confrontation would only result in emotional manipulation that might weaken my resolve. In the letter I had written, "Mom and Madison, by the time you read this, I will be on my way back to New York. I love you both, but I can't continue to be the solution to problems you're not willing to address yourselves. Madison, you are capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. You're smart, personable, and resourceful when you want to be. But constantly being rescued from consequences isn't helping you grow. It's keeping you trapped in patterns that will limit your life. I've left information about the community college's career counseling program and some local job opportunities that might interest you. I'm also setting up a therapy fund for you that will cover weekly sessions for 6 months if you choose to use it. Mom, I understand that raising us alone after Dad died was incredibly difficult. I know you've made sacrifices, and I appreciate everything you've done, but expecting me to put my entire future on hold isn't fair or realistic. I've arranged for a monthly contribution to household expenses and set up grocery deliveries to help while you're in Florida. I'm not abandoning my family responsibilities, I'm just fulfilling them in a way that doesn't require sacrificing the career I've worked so hard to build. I need space and time to focus on my life in New York. I won't be answering calls or messages for a while as I sort things out. This isn't goodbye forever. It's just me establishing healthy boundaries that should have been in place long ago. When you're ready to have a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than expectation and obligation, I'll be here. I love you both too much to continue enabling patterns that aren't healthy for any of us. With love and hope for change. Paige. I had read and reread the letter, making sure it conveyed firmness without cruelty, boundaries without rejection. It was the hardest thing I'd ever written. With a deep breath, I picked up my suitcase and quietly left through the back door. The taxi was waiting at the end of the street as arranged. As we drove away, I felt an overwhelming mix of emotions: grief for the relationship I wished we had, guilt for leaving without confrontation. But underneath it all, a growing sense of rightness. The taxi ride to the airport was a blur. I kept checking my phone, half expecting frantic calls from Madison, but it remained silent. She was probably still unaware that I had left. At the airport, I moved through security in a daze, my mind racing with second guesses. Was I doing the right thing? Should I have tried harder to make them understand in person? What if this permanently damaged our relationship? But as I boarded the plane, another thought emerged. What about the relationship with myself? The one I had been damaging for years by always putting others' needs above my own. Didn't that relationship deserve care and protection too? As the plane took off, I turned my phone to airplane mode, symbolically disconnecting from the expectations and obligations that had defined so much of my life. For the next few hours, I would be unreachable, suspended between my old life and whatever awaited me in New York. I arrived back at my tiny Manhattan apartment late that evening. Opening the door felt like coming home in the truest sense, not just to a physical space, but to myself. Thomas had left fresh flowers on my counter and a note. "Welcome back to your life. Proud of you. Call me when you're settled." I took a long shower, washing away the stress of the past weeks, and fell into my own bed with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, I allowed myself to simply rest in the knowledge that I had taken a necessary step toward healing. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. As expected, there were numerous notifications: 12 missed calls from Madison, 5 from my mother, and a flurry of text messages ranging from confusion to anger. "Madison, where are you? Did you seriously leave without saying goodbye?" Madison, "I can't believe you just abandoned me like this. So much for family." Mother, "Paige, call me immediately. What you've done is incredibly selfish and hurtful." Madison, "Fine, leave. I didn't need your help anyway. You've always been so full of yourself." Mother, "I raised you better than this. Your father would be so disappointed." That last one stung, but I reminded myself that my father was the one who had encouraged me to live my own life. He would understand this decision better than anyone. I didn't respond to any of the messages. Instead, I focused on preparing for my return to work the next day. I spent Sunday organizing my thoughts for the holiday campaign and working on preliminary sketches using the tablet Amanda had dropped off. Monday morning, I walked into Archer & Stone with my head held high, greeted by genuine smiles from my colleagues. "The prodigal designer returns," Jared said warmly. "Glad to have you back, Paige. Everything okay with your family?" "It's complicated," I admitted, "but I'm handling it. Thank you for holding my position." "Talent like yours doesn't come along every day," he said simply. "The Lux team is excited to see your holiday concepts this afternoon." As I settled back at my desk, Amanda stopped by with coffee. "So," she asked quietly, "how did they take it when you left?" "I left a letter," I admitted. "Cowardly maybe, but I couldn't face the manipulation in person." "Not cowardly," she corrected. "Strategic. Sometimes distance is the only way to break unhealthy patterns. Give them time. They'll either adjust to the new boundaries or show you that the relationship was only valuable to them when it was on their terms." Her words stayed with me throughout that first week back. The messages from home continued, eventually shifting from angry accusations to tearful pleas, especially after my mother returned early from Florida to deal with the situation I had created. I held firm to my decision not to engage until they could respect my boundaries. Meanwhile, I threw myself back into my work, impressing the Lux team with my holiday campaign concepts and regaining my creative momentum. The most unexpected development came about 3 weeks after my return to New York. The building security guard called up to let me know I had a visitor. "A Susan Lawson is asking to see you," he said. "She says she's your mother." My heart raced. "I'm not expecting her. Please tell her I'm not available right now." "She's quite insistent," he said apologetically. "Says she flew all the way from Ohio to see you." "I understand, but I'm still not available," I said firmly. "That's my right." After hanging up, I felt a mixture of guilt and pride. The old Paige would have immediately rushed down, afraid of causing a scene or hurting feelings, but I was learning that sometimes protecting your boundaries means being willing to withstand disapproval. Later, I received an email from my mother, more subdued than her previous messages. "Paige, I respect that you wouldn't see me today. Perhaps that's fair after how things have been. I've checked into a hotel downtown and will be here for 2 more days. If you change your mind about talking, I'd like the chance to hear your perspective. If not, I understand. Mom." It was the first communication that didn't include guilt trips or accusations. A small step, but meaningful. Thomas was my rock through all of this, offering support without pressure. "Whatever you decide about seeing her is valid," he assured me over dinner that night. "There's no rule book for this situation." After much consideration, I agreed to meet my mother for coffee the next afternoon in a public place where neither of us could easily escalate the conversation. When I arrived at the cafe, she was already there, looking smaller and more uncertain than I'd ever seen her. "Thank you for coming," she said simply. We talked for nearly 2 hours. Really talked perhaps for the first time in years. I explained how her expectations and Madison's needs had always seemed to trump my dreams. She spoke about her fears of failing as a single mother and how she had leaned too heavily on me as a result. "I think I've been unfair to both of you in different ways," she admitted, "expecting too much from you and too little from Madison. After your father died, I was just trying to keep everything from falling apart." "I understand that," I said, "but I can't be the solution anymore, not in the way you want. I need to live my own life." She nodded slowly. "Your letter forced me to really see what we've been doing to you. Madison, too. She's actually started looking at community college options again. Having you gone made her realize she needs to step up." It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still hurt feelings and years of patterns to unravel. But it was a beginning, a crack in the wall of expectation and obligation that had stood between us for so long. As we parted, my mother hugged me tentatively. "I'm proud of you, Paige, for standing up for yourself. Your father would be proud too." Those words, freely given rather than used as manipulation, meant more than she could know. 6 months after my departure from Ohio, I stood in the Archer and Stone conference room presenting the successful holiday campaign results to the entire agency. The Luxe Cosmetics campaign had exceeded all sales projections, and I had just been promoted to Associate Creative Director, the youngest in the company's history. The client specifically praised the authenticity of the campaign messaging, Jared announced to the team. Paige's concept of "reveal your true self" resonated with audiences in ways we hadn't anticipated. The irony wasn't lost on me. In finding the courage to reveal my true self to my family, I had tapped into a creative well that informed my best professional work. The journey hadn't been easy. For the first month after our coffee shop meeting, communication with my mother and Madison remained tentative and sometimes strained. I maintained firm boundaries, refusing to be pulled back into old patterns of sacrifice and obligation. I found a therapist who specialized in family dynamics, which helped me process the complex emotions of guilt, resentment, and love that continued to surface. She helped me understand that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was necessary for healthy relationships. Guilt is the price tag many women pay for self-determination, she told me during one session. Recognize it, but don't let it make your decisions for you. Thomas remained my steadfast support, never pushing, but always present. Our relationship deepened through the crisis, and we began cautiously discussing a future together. My friendship with Amanda evolved as well. She became not just a colleague, but a mentor, someone who had walked a similar path and emerged stronger for it. The most surprising changes came from Madison. Without me there to fall back on, she had finally been forced to face the consequences of her choices. She enrolled in community college part-time while working at a local coffee shop. Our conversations, when we had them, revealed a new maturity in her approach to life. I never realized how much I was depending on you and Mom to solve everything, she admitted during one phone call. It's harder doing things myself, but it also feels better somehow. My mother, too, had changed. She returned to her receptionist job in Ohio, and while she still occasionally slipped into old patterns of subtle guilt and emotional appeals, she caught herself more often than not. I'm trying, she would say when I called her out on it. Old habits die hard. 3 months after my departure, I flew back to Ohio for a day meeting my mother and Madison on neutral ground at a restaurant halfway between the airport and our old home. It was awkward at first, but less charged than I had feared. We didn't discuss the past much. Instead, we focused on the present, on Madison's classes and my mother's book club and my latest design projects. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, more authentic than the relationship we had before. As I settled into my new role at Archer & Stone, I realized that the very act of valuing myself enough to leave had created space for everyone to grow. My sister was developing independence. My mother was finding her own strength, and I was thriving in ways I never could have if I had stayed. One evening, as I sat on my small balcony overlooking the New York skyline, I reread my father's last birthday card to me, which I had rescued from those basement boxes. Always remember, he had written, that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Your dreams matter too. I traced his handwriting with my finger, feeling closer to him than I had in years. In the end, I had honored his memory, not by sacrificing my dreams, but by finally having the courage to pursue them. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. Family patterns are deep-rooted and easily triggered. But I had found a truth that would guide me through future challenges. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to love yourself enough to set boundaries. And sometimes a letter and a one-way ticket aren't an ending, but the beginning of healthier relationships for everyone involved. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family obligations and your own dreams? What would your letter have said if you'd written one? Like and subscribe if you've ever had to prioritize yourself after years of putting others first, and share this story with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose their own path. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that true family supports your growth rather than limiting it.